Do you know that many quilters make quilt tops, and a great many of those quilt tops never get made into quilts? These are my own stack here that are waiting to be dealt with, but I will finish them. So join Mariko and me and I'll show you some tips. So gather your materials, your quilt top and batting and backing. Then rule one is you have to find a big enough space to spread your quilt. So I set off on the floor. You could also find a large table. I'm going to do mine on this table here today. If you don't have a big enough table, you can buy the fold-away kinds that open up and close. Or you could check out your local library or community centre. Sometimes they're willing to let you use a table there, or a church. Don't use your best dining room table. It won't like the pins scratching it and the tape sticking to it. Step two is you have to get the creases out. So iron the backing and iron the top. So I have my backing here. I'm laying it out with the right side towards the table. And I've already gone ahead and ironed the creases out. And while you're laying out the quilt, you're going to keep on smoothing these layers. The next layer to go on is the batting. Now you want the back and the batting to be a little bit bigger than the quilt top so that you can centre the quilt top on it. Just keep smoothing it out. Now you want to have at least this much, maybe 1 to 2 inches of backing and batting all the way around it. It can move a little bit when you're pinning it together, and so you want to avoid that. The next thing you want to do is secure all this to the table. So you can use some clips. Just clip it to the edge of the table, or you can use some tape. So once you've got it laid out, you want to make sure it's all smooth, and then you want to tape your layers. These are from my cupboard. I have a warm and natural one. Then I have a couple of other brands. They actually just look exactly the same, so I'm just showing you the labels for them. I've used all of these kinds and they're all pretty good. You can also get batting in black, so if you have a really dark quilt, you can use this and it all works pretty well. Most of these, as you can see, they are very blanket-like when you get them out of the packet. And that is a real advantage, especially if you're just beginning to quilt. Now you can buy a synthetic type, which is a little cheaper. This particular one is actually quite good. It's fairly smooth, but some of them are quite wrinkly. They're difficult to lay out and spread because they have a bit more elasticity in them, and it makes your job a little bit more difficult, especially if it's the first time that you've put a quilt together. So you know, you may want to go for a cheaper version. That's what I did when I first started quilting, but you'll save yourself a lot of effort if you use the blanket type. One way you can save costs is actually to join batting. So I don't know whether you can tell or not, but I did sew some batting here together for this. I just put a zigzag seam. It looks perfectly good when it's joined. You can't tell at all. It's better for the environment not to throw things away, and it saves you quite a bit of money. So take that back down. Decide how you're going to fasten the layers, but really I've started showing you this traditional way. Once I've got this part done, I would get out some pins. These are curved pins and I like this smaller size, and all you do is go along and pin it every so often. Maybe about every 8 inches would be good. There are bigger pins too, but I find that it doesn't damage your fabric as much to put the smaller size in. So you would repeatedly go along and just put the pins all the way in. One more step that you can take if you want to is to tack or baste the fabric. So for that, you would just take a needle and thread. When your quilt's pinned, you can do these basting stitches, which are gigantic stitches across the quilt. The pin's holding it in position, so you're just quickly going along with a few rows of these basting stitches. Once you've done that, you can take all your pins out. You won't have to worry about pins going under your sewing machine. And basting is a good way to do it, but a lot of times people don't want to take that extra step, and I don't usually do that anymore. But I have to say, in the beginning I did do that, and it's always good to know that it's an option. But keep watching, because I'm going to show you some alternative methods that you might like better. One of the newer things people use is spray adhesive. This is specifically for making quilts. The method to lay your fabric out is really the same, but you would do it in stages. So you would lay your back in, tape it down just the same way, and then you would take your adhesive spray, shake it up. I'm actually not going to spray this in here because you need to be in a well ventilated area to do this, but you would spray it over the back of your quilt. There are some warnings with this. It is for machine and hand quilting, but there are some dangers. I'll take a close-up photograph of those for you to see. And another thing is that if you overspray and it gets on your furniture, it's a little bit hard to remove too. So you do have to be a bit careful about that. Once you've got your backing sprayed, then you go ahead and you put your batting on there. Again, smoothing carefully, and as you smooth it, that sticks down. Now you've got that on, you would take your spray again. You would spray the next area, and then you would put your quilt top on there and carefully press and smooth that down. Now this works quite well. It's not my preferred method, but I have used it. If I'm doing a large quilt with this, I do actually like to put just a few pins in as well, just so the weight of it doesn't drag the pieces apart. But a lot of people really like this. It's quite a popular method of doing it. For another option, I've opened the quilt up again so you can see. And for this one, I actually would put a square ironing board underneath this for protection, because you're going to use a hot iron on it. I've cut some pieces here. This is fusible webbing. And so you cut some small pieces of this, dot it around on your quilt. When you've got them where you want them, take your iron and follow the manufacturer's instructions of whatever fusible you're using. They're all a little bit different. Press that in place. When you've done that, peel off the paper. Put the batting down. Press again, and then put more pieces of fusible dotted on the batting. They don't have to be in the same place. Repeat, so iron and peel it off, and then lay your quilt top on. I know I keep saying smoothing, but it's just so important to get this all smooth. And then again, just press those. The effect of that is that you've basically pinned it without using any pins. Those don't have to be taken out. They won't make any difference in the future to your quilt. And all those three, once you've done the steps, are ready for you to take and either machine quilt or hand quilt. Or you can take your tape, all your tape off from the edges. One thing I always do is I always turn my quilt over and make sure there are no creases in the back. And I also check that I've still got my border all the way around. Your quilt is now ready for rolling up, taking to the machine and quilting. So I hope some of these steps have made you think that you can do this. It's really not that difficult. It's a little bit time consuming. It gets better the more that you do, it gets easier. If this has been helpful, please subscribe to the channel. I'm going to make more videos about simple, very basic quilting ideas, so that if you've not made quilts, you can get started. And some new patterns will be coming soon.